I think at the core, you have a set of your values. You might not be aware of them, or you might not be able to articulate them yet. But I think at the core, who you are, those core values, unless you might like face like big life events that might change them. Most of the time, at least for me, they stay the same, but they can mature over time. They can evolve because you change, you grow, and life changes around you.
Welcome to 99 Humans. My name is Jeff LaCosta, curious coach and Wall Street Journal best-selling author, striving to understand how little things generate big impact.
And I'm Nadia Carta, tech executive and lifestyle coach with a mission to transform lives and corporations by kindling hearts to generate a zeal for life.
Each week, we investigate stories about the human side of leadership to re-energize your spirit and help you become a stronger leader.
Because the reality is that leadership is messy, goofy, challenging, but always human.
Thanks for spending time with us today. Let's dive in.
All right. Hello, and welcome to 99 Humans. Today, I'm joined by the incredible Aysun Demircan. Now, our show is all about getting behind resumes, and we got an incredible resume today in Aysun. Aysun, thank you for being here. Let me just list a couple of these bullet points from your resume to ground us. But currently you're in product management at Circle while also mentoring lots of different startups out there. But our paths crossed, and also with Nadia at Google when you were working there. But you have also worked at a who's who of other companies, from Pfizer to McKinsey to Intel and more. Aysun, thank you so much for being on the show. Where does this podcast find you in the world today?
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me. Such a pleasure to have this conversation with you today. So I am actually in San Francisco. We just moved from New York to San Francisco. So I am
big transition. How long ago did you move?
A few days ago.
Oh, wow. Really just happened. Okay. Where are you in the city? I used to live in Coal Valley and then in Nopa. It was Western Edition when it was dangerous, and then they rebranded it to Nopa while we lived there.
Oh, nice. You're in Pack Heights.
Okay, Pack Heights is beautiful.
Right by Lafayette Park. Yeah.
Random tip. Are you an animal lover by chance?
Yeah, I do love animals.
So there's this really cool place just over the Golden Gate Bridge called the Marine Mammal Center. And two tips for you, depending on how deep you want to go in this rabbit hole. But it is the single largest marine mammal hospital in the world. So just for a visit, it's incredible to see hundreds and hundreds of sea lions and sea otters and all these different animals, and really see them up close and how people help them rehabilitate when they strand up on the beach. But the deeper tip, if you're at all interested, AJ, my husband, and I, we volunteered there. And it's the coolest volunteering gig I've ever done in my whole life. And I still talk about it. And it's still some of the most interesting story material that I have. You get to feed the animals. And it takes a long time, and it's a really dirty job. But you actually get one-on-one time with a team in the middle of the night with these incredible animals, interacting with them. It was such a cool thing, but it's at least worth a visit, if not worth checking into volunteering.
This is amazing. I will actually add both of them to my list to do. First to visit.
There you go.
That's
I love San Francisco. You're going to have such a great time.
Thank you. Looking forward.
What actually brought you out there?
So, multiple reasons. My husband is from Marin. Speaking of Marin, nice. I'm sure he's aware of that. He must be. His family lives in Marin, so we wanted to be closer to his family. And also my work, most of my team, most of the people I work with, they're also in the Bay Area. So we thought this is a good time. We've been thinking about this for a long time, so this is a good time to move. And to be honest, I've been getting tired from New York's winters. So
yes.
I've been living in New York now, I think 11 years.
Okay.
In Boston, 2 years before that. So 13 years since I left Turkey, that brutal winters, I'm excited not to have quite a winter.
Well, you're hinting at a pretty good place for us to start, I think, which is you have lived quite an amazing life geographically, now plus one more city to your list, but also from the string of impressive logos that I mentioned at the beginning. Would you mind just grounding us to start and kind of your journey to get to where you are today a little bit?
Sure. Thank you so much for asking. And I will give a high-level story. You'll tell me wherever you want to discuss, wherever you might want to go into at a deeper level. Because I am someone who doesn't love talking about herself so much. So you might
fly it out of me then. Okay.
I will give it to a very high level. I am originally from Turkey. I was born in a small city called Erzincan in the northeastern side of Turkey. But I grew up in Istanbul. Like at the age of 5, we moved to Istanbul, triggered by an earthquake that happened in Erzincan at the time, which I think is interesting. Like sometimes things happen and your life might change a lot. I grew up in Istanbul. I studied engineering, and I had, as you mentioned, I had a story that crosscuts very different industries, different places, different geographies. But at the heart of it, I would say following my curiosity and values that led me to making decisions along my journey. I studied engineering. During school, I was very much interested in business, economics, leadership, debate. I was part of debate club. That led me into not continuing the engineering path, but being really drawn to leading, leadership, working with people, how to influence people. That led me into business path. As you mentioned, I worked at Intel, Pfizer, McKinsey. Then I was very fortunate to come to US for my MBA at HBS. During that time, I had an entrepreneurial journey. And then after business school, I worked at Bridgewater, Google, Bridgewater, after that, McKinsey, New York again, Google, which is where we met with you and Nadia. After Google, Protocol Labs, and most recently Circle.
I mean, holy shit, those things, everything you just said is like what people would dream their career would go like, I think. Does that resonate with you? Like, do you look back and go, yeah, I really did tick pretty much all the boxes there?
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. I think every story has its own great moments, and maybe when you are in it, you don't think, oh my God, this is the dream journey, which I don't think it's the dream journey. Everybody has their own unique dream journey, but I will say, I think I've been very fortunate to work at some of the greatest places. From my perspective, people might think differently, and meeting some of the greatest people that I could meet and I wouldn't know otherwise, getting to know great people and very different people along my journey. So I definitely find myself lucky, but I wouldn't call my journey as the dream journey to check the boxes. Every journey, I think, has its own unique challenges and as well as joys for.
I want to go back to your childhood, I think, in Turkey for a minute, because those are obviously formative years for all of us. Wherever and whatever our childhood looks like impacts what our adulthood looks like also. But you mentioned a couple things that sparked my curiosity. One is being in debate. I was also in debate, so I'm curious what kind of debate you did, because I find that to be a really undervalued field of study. At that age, learning how to argue, in quotes, in an organized fashion on a side that you don't always get to pick. That's the key that I wish everyone in the world, especially right now, could learn is there's good points to be made and good ways to make them on all sides. And having that skill, I found to be something was really helpful. But tell me about your debate days. That was cool.
Yeah, I mean, I love it that you picked that. I totally agree with you. So we did English Parliament style. You might be familiar with that approach. There's a statement. It's usually, there is not a right or wrong answer. Like people might be in different sides of that statement, and you might be as a person too. And then you learn if you are going to be in the opposition side or the government side that is stating, hey, we want, or we are proposing this to be. So you learn which side you are going to be in, I think 15, 20 minutes before the debate starts. There are 8 people, 2 teams on each side. Every team has 2 people. So you have a teammate and you have 20 minutes to prepare. You might be on a side that you are familiar with or you believe, or the other side. And then after the 20 minutes, there's the opposition. There's the opening team. Opening team is usually the pro, and then teams switch back and forth. I believe maybe this is the one you are familiar with too. So for me, when I started college in 2004, and I graduated from science high school, it was pretty much scientific, academic. But I always, growing up, I had always for better or worse, because sometimes I think it's good to have few areas that you want to focus on. But I was a child who was just curious about anything, everything. Yeah. So although I studied in science high school, I was very much interested in social sciences, as I mentioned.
Even just debate and science don't often always go together. What did your parents do, or did you credit who do you credit for that influence, if anyone?
I will give credit to my parents for sure. I think they fed my curiosity that was obvious to at least to them. They still tell you were a child who would ask so many questions, much more than they know anyone around them. And they always fed that curiosity with books, with encouraging me. So that curiosity and them feeding that curiosity helped. And coming back to debates, I want to end by saying, I think to me, the most interesting part of debate was that I will need to defend something that I might not even agree, which is going to help me to see what the other people might be thinking. So it's going to make me a human who can empathize with others and understand what other views that I might not agree that might be bringing to the table that might be valid. And I think it is such a great exercise to do, because as today, unfortunately, we are living in a world, maybe these days increasingly divided by political, religious views, and people tend to think that whatever they believe most of the time is the right way, or they are ingrained to think that we grew up this way and have that one perspective. But in a debate environment, you are seeing, this political or religious or social view that I might totally disagree. Now I need to stand up and make a case for it. And as I prepare this 20, 15 minutes and talk to my teammate, I'm seeing the value, why people might be believing this.
I heard a quote this morning that I really liked, which was, we're using facts like a drunk uses a lamppost for support instead of illumination. I was like, damn, that hits home for me on facts can be whatever we want, but nobody is changing their mind with anything that we hear. And I'm included in that, right? I want to prove my point, and it was a good check on myself with, well, what bad habits am I falling into? As much as I criticize, we're not able to debate and we're not able to talk to each other. I'm certainly looking at the world trying to prove the way that I see it as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think for everyone, it's great that you're at least acknowledging where the blind spots we all might have and changing it. But I must say, not only seeing what the others think, if you want to align on something and find middle ground, it helps to understand what others might be valuing. And sometimes in negotiations, in business deals or deals, in any type of deal too, the conclusion actually doesn't have to be someone give away something that they really value. You might find a middle ground where both sides might be winning more than they would think at the beginning of that journey.
So speaking of values then, Aysun, hearing some of your story, how has that journey shaped what you value, and what does that look like in terms of impacting your leadership today?
Thank you. So as I mentioned, I think that my curiosity fed the initial part of my journey at the beginning, really intellectually being curious and focusing on growth. But as I grow up, and especially high school, college, afterwards, having a journey abroad, what I realize is your values, knowing your values and letting them to help you to chart your path is the right way, at least for me. And your values.
Before we, real quick, just sorry to interrupt, but before you share what yours are, what you just said is really powerful. Did you always know your values, or how did you even come to realize that? Because if it's the secret weapon, you would think we should all be letting that be our North Star all the time. But of course, it's not that easy. And in fact, it took me a lot of work and a lot of self-awareness to understand, I need to really unpack what mine are. I didn't do it until later in life, but I'm curious if it's the same for you, or if you really saw what your values were young and have been chasing them ever since.
In college, that environment with lots of different extracurricular activities made me to realize, and especially debate, different type of beliefs, people, schools of thoughts, and realizing what you believe when you are growing up or how you've been raised by your family, by your close social circle, is not necessarily how everyone else is. I think especially college was that melting pot for me to see. And then it makes you realize there's not necessarily one right way, like as we were speaking in debate, like what it actually teaches people. But what matters is knowing what is important to you and how you show up. I think at the core, you have a set of your values. You might not be aware of them, or you might not be able to articulate them yet. But I think at the core, who you are, those core values, unless you might like face like big life events that might change them. Most of the time, at least for me, they stay the same, but they can mature over time. They can evolve because you change, you grow, and life changes around you.
So clearly, curiosity and this craving for constant personal growth is coming through loud and clear. What else have you kind of experienced are at the core of who you are?
So for me, I think it's also both culture and how I've been raised by my family, that integrity, honesty, like being true to what you believe to yourself, always showed up in my day-to-day life. And then I think later in college and post after that, I realized, yeah, integrity is such an important value for me. And making sure I show up as who I want to be true to, which should be myself before everyone else. So for me, integrity, curiosity were among them. And then the other one, I would say loyalty. And again, I think this is something to do with my both upbringing and cultural loyalty, which is a interesting value because it can be double-edged sword.
And as they all can, I think. But yes, that one seems to be in the news a little bit more right now for some of its negative aspects.
Yeah, exactly. But the way that I've been thinking about loyalty, and I realized like later in life, while most people think about loyalty to someone else or a group or to externally motivated something, the way that I think about loyalty is loyalty to your values and loyalty to yourself. So if you think about loyalty before above anything else, I want to be like loyal to my values, which means my loyalty is anchored by my integrity. Then loyalty becomes a powerful tool and value when you are in doubt, like which direction to go. You think about your values and what matters to me, and sometimes your values might be in conflict, some values. And then, thinking about what really matters at this stage of my life and how I want to make a decision or approach it. Maybe difficult.
That's a juicy tease that you're giving us a little bit here. So, of course, I want to ask, what's a time where your values have been in conflict, and how did you actually work through that situation? Because that resonates deeply with me, where you go, I thought I did the hard work. I know what my values are. Now I'm supposed to live them out, but it still isn't over, right? There's still more work to do.
Yeah. So as you were actually asking me the question, I was like, oh my God, this is such a difficult question. Like, how am I going to answer? I don't know. I didn't think about this. But in the moment, actually, the one that came to my mind immediately was, like I mentioned, curiosity, that intellectual curiosity is a value of mine. But also another value of mine is people, like really finding your people that you want to grow with. You want them to grow. You want to help them, and you want them to be in your team. Meaning, it doesn't necessarily mean like they are in your team, but they could be your peers, they could be your mentors, sponsors, or people in your team that you might be mentoring and coaching. So I guess like a conflicting situation, a good example is definitely then I decide to, in my past, like we were speaking about like all these great places that I was fortunate to work. It was all, I think in all of them, it was a very hard decision to make a decision to leave that place. Like, for example, McKinsey or Google, everywhere, like Bridgewater, Protocol Labs, people, like I was fortunate to work with people that I loved working with and learning from, growing with. So that value, find your people and be with them value, was in conflict with I want to grow. I am curious. I want to follow like where my curiosity takes me, in the sense like where I can be right now, that great innovation is happening, and I can bring my unique expertise or experience to the place, which like Circle is one of them right now, like that led me to be where I am. So I think the value of like, I want to learn, grow, and add value to a place that I might be bringing unique value, and be with people that I love being with, and I'm still growing. So I think in my case, it seemed like, I mean, in some cases that tipped into staying where I am.
Yeah.
Like, although I had decisions to make. And in some cases, as we just spoke, like that led me into following where I want to grow and where I want to add value.
I want to poke just a little bit deeper, because what you're saying, I think, is a super natural thing for everybody to experience. And I've experienced it in ways that are really unsettling, where I'm like, why don't I love this anymore? I used to love this, and now I'm feeling like I should be more grateful. I should be more. And you get all of the Instagram advice and conflict. Like, maybe I just need to gratitude journal more about McKinsey so that I appreciate how lucky I am to be here more, since everybody would kill to work here. And yet you're describing this process of wrestling with values and choosing growth and moving to your next growth opportunity in such a wonderful, it sounds like you just skated through that moment. But what did it feel like when you come to this incredible place? You're surrounded by great people, you love them, but I get the sense that there was this sort of grating or growing, potentially, dissatisfaction with something that had been satisfying in the past. What did it feel like, and how did you go about making that decision?
That's a great question. It's not an easy, and it's not only like, it's not always same, like from McKinsey to Google or Google to Protocol Labs. I think in general, there's a combination of a little bit of luck and like serendipity. Like sometimes certain opportunities arise and they get much more of your attention than some others, because we all like in our career journeys, like faced with like certain opportunities, making decisions to show up or not to show up, right, for some places. And in my case, like all these decisions, like one common thing have been having a balance of my intuition and also being very analytical into the decision making. So I try to, I think at the end of the day, in my case, intuition has a really heavy weight in that decision making. But I always also realize intuition might be clouded by perception at the moment, or recency bias, or other things. So I try to make sure I keep a record of like what made me to like make that decision in the moment. So I mean, in some cases I had like a spreadsheet thinking about, like literally when I described this to one of my mentors, like much later, when they were trying to make a decision whether or not like they should take this job or like this or stay where they are. But I told them actually the spreadsheet had values, important criteria for me, and had scoring plus weights. They were like, wow, like I don't know if I heard anyone do
I love it. I love it.
So I definitely have a framework around that. And that criteria changes too. Like sometimes you value domain expertise or interesting domain more, like at a stage of your life, more than you might value later in your life, and you might value scope or impact more. Like it can change. So I had an analytical approach, but I also made sure what it tells me is in line with like my guts, how it makes me feel. And that those criteria always included people, values, impact, like that feeds into curiosity. So that is one, like really thinking about my compass of like intuition and analytically, if I think about pros, cons, like how it fits into my value map. And then I talk to people. I talk to people who knew me in the past, who know me maybe recently, but people that I trust their advice. And I tell them, look, I would love to hear your thoughts, knowing everything about me. And don't worry, I'm not gonna, like, don't worry to influence me too much, because I am gonna be talking to many people and I know your view might not be applicable to me in this moment. So I make sure people don't feel the weight of like, oh my God, if I give you an advice or if I share my view, is this gonna impact your decision drastically? Because then people might feel that responsibility may be too much, right? But if you are one, being open to them, and then secondly, talking to a wide variety of people to collect perspective, which I did like in every decision, then it also helps me to see, okay, maybe I am missing something. In case I am missing something or get confirmation of my view, I am talking to people who I value. And hopefully and ideally, you will talk to people who have like very different views, that you can hear different perspectives. And then when I made the decision to leave, like for example, I remember from McKinsey to Google, I remember it was just such a hard moment for me to think about like how I'm going to share this with people, my sponsors, my mentors, people I work the most with. It is definitely not always like easy moment to think about, like, and you always think when I share like how they are going to react, am I going to disappoint them? And the good news is that like if you are with the right people and you have your own reasons that you are explaining to them, like they were always, not only in McKinsey case, in every places that I left, always supportive, always understanding. And I think maybe like for anyone listening and maybe like in a moment that they want to make a decision, they don't know how they are going to communicate to people that maybe they feel responsible to or like loyal to, in the sense that like I'm in your team. Like, remember that people who care about you, they will understand you. And if they don't, maybe that's just a sign that you are making the right decision anyway for your own journey.
Thank you for that answer, because it's super comprehensive to hear the intuition, which has got to be part of it. Like, we just can't make life dissociated from that huge piece. But the analytical approach, which you've detailed out, and I'm with you, we have thrown out pro-con lists because I don't find them helpful. My husband doesn't find them helpful. We're now purely values list making people, because it's way more helpful. I can have pros and cons on everything, and it doesn't help me make an answer. But when I center around what pros and cons matter to me, suddenly I learn something new. And the other key piece that I think often goes unsaid, which you hit on, was call it your kitchen cabinet or your personal mentors or whoever these people are, but finding wisdom in the crowd as well, and kind of looking for the patterns that emerge from all three of those things together to help influence what your decision is. Something I just got to ask. Okay, you worked at McKinsey. Everybody works at McKinsey or one of these consulting firms. What the heck is going on inside consulting firms that makes them such a launch pad for superstars later on in their career?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate hearing that. I think, I mean, McKinsey, I cannot speak for other consultancy firms, but I'm sure they are similar too. I think it's such a great place to start your career, in the sense that it's almost like a crash course into business world. You get to work on very different projects, work with very different companies, different cultures, different groups of clients. And especially early in your career, you are being put in the rooms with C-level executive of these companies, which if you are starting your journey at somewhere else, let's say at Google, right? Like very like low likelihood that out of college, someone is going to sit in a C-level exec room and hearing the recommendations that was fed by their own analysis. So I think in that sense, McKinsey gives you the perspective that you can see early on in your career what matters for a company to be run from the top level and how that world works, and also the agility to learn. Because I remember like every few months, like I would need to learn, like at least at the basis level, a new industry or a company or a situation, to then be able to do the analysis like early in your career. Of course, you are by no means being an expert in a few months, right? But when I look at my career, I think one of the things now, like especially after, like 17 years, that sounds a lot, that it all adds up and creates that like big synergistic value, is that there are lots of similarities, although in different industries. And sometimes industries or companies are at very different stages of their own life cycle. And working in different industries, learning about different things, gives you a unique perspective that you can actually pick and choose some of the similarities and bring to the table while you might not have like 10 years of experience in that specific functionality or expertise, but you have seen a similar movie playing out somewhere else, that you can bring a perspective. What were the learnings, mistakes, or best practices was done elsewhere? So I think from like, when you think about these skill set, gaining is like early in your career. Imagine like just working at McKinsey like few years after college. We all say at McKinsey, it's like every year is worth at least 2 to 3 years of experience. Nice. Not only because you work a lot, but
literally in hours also. Yeah.
but not because of the hours only, because you get this crash course that you wouldn't get otherwise, like seeing very different companies, cultures, and industries. And cultures, like I want to highlight, because you work with different clients. Sometimes they have very different cultures, and you learn how to work with. And like going back to debate, like what we were speaking earlier in this chat, although cultures might look very different on paper, there are always underlying common foundational core values in every place that you might go and work with. So it gives you, I think, an agility to be able to adapt in a new environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Aysun, we've talked about your professional career quite a bit here, but I would be remiss to not ask about your personal life as well and how those two intersect. I know you have your husband there with you in San Francisco. Can you tell us a little bit about the support structure and life outside and how that intersects or helps propel you in your career?
Thank you. And I must say, I also have a son who is almost 1.
Oh, yay. Okay.
And yeah, he's definitely a big part of my support.
I would guess things have changed a lot in this year then.
Yes, that's right. But all in great ways, for sure. And growing you as a human in different ways. So I like to think like not the professional versus personal life. I don't think about those like almost like two different lives. I like to think that like going back to values and integrity, having a holistic approach to life. And sometimes they intertwine a lot, your professional work life and personal life, sometimes less so. But besides from professional life and people who I might have met at working environments, they become my friends and definitely a support structure. Like to this date, I am still like pretty much friends, mentors, mentees with many people I had worked previously. So, and they are part of my support structure for sure. And on the family side, I think Warren Buffett had said that, or like some other people too, I'm sure they did. But I think this was from Warren Buffett to say like the most important decision you will make, choosing the right partner. Yeah, that's for sure. I think is a very important decision and a very core part of your support structure. Besides from friends, like family, but your partner is part of the core family. So I'm very fortunate to have a partner who is very supportive for my journey and growth. And we both support each other and challenge each other in good ways for our growth. And as I said, like my son, although he might not know yet, but he's already a big part of my support structure, because it is such a joy to spend time with him. And after long hours at work or days of travels, it is a great reminder, just a small smile or a playful moment to show you actually what are those things that really matter in life and ground you and remind you that there are so many things that we should be grateful that seem so mundane in day-to-day life. Like having just a few minutes with your son, with your child or partner, someone you love in your busy day, that by itself, like why we should be grateful and why we all actually work hard for. So I would say, yeah, definitely starting with my core family, my partner, my husband, my son, and then my parents, extended family and friends. Those are definitely.
I love that. I mean, you're talking about working hard in one sense, then having the dividends in another, but you're also working hard, obviously, to raise a 1-year-old son. It's hard, very, very, very hard work to sustain a relationship with your husband, with your family. I mean, as we get older, it takes a lot of intention to make those things thrive when they may not start out that way. When we're kids, we've got relationships with our parents, easy breezy, but to visit, to travel, to keep that going. Same for relationships more closely. It's hard work, but gosh, it's the ultimate reminder of what matters, just like you said.
Yeah, that is right.
Well, Aysun, the time has really flown. We always end these episodes the same way, which is to ask, if you reflect on this conversation, what word of wisdom or piece of advice would you leave 99 humans with?
Connecting back to our conversation today, I would say start with your values. And it all starts with loyalty to your values, understanding your values and what matters to you. Loyalty to your values anchored in integrity. My advice would be, it's never too late to think about your values if you did not already. And even if you have been thinking about them, give yourself grace in the sense that it might change. They might mature or evolve. But always try to take some moment to realize what they are and if you are directionally at the right place. Because one other maybe tactical advice, sometimes when in doubt, I just think about today, am I at least doing things that are by and large aligned with my values, or is there anything that I feel like I'm doing against? If there are things that you are doing against, those are the things that are easy to cut or deprioritize.
I love that. That is kind of the mark of progress, is just boring old everyday habits and behaviors that end up being the whole life that we live. So doing that daily check-in really resonates. Well, Aysun, if people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, Aysun Demircan, although they might not know how to
I'll put it in the show notes. Yes, no one has to spell it here.
Exactly. So you can all find me on LinkedIn. I have social media too, but I'm not very active. So LinkedIn is the right place to find me.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much again for coming on the show. It's a great conversation.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And yeah, I would love to thank you and Nadia again. You guys been doing this for, I think, almost 4 years, if not more now. On top of both of your demanding lives, you two have been definitely two of those people that I look up to and get inspiration from too.
Well, I appreciate it. You're helping us land the plane here together as we cross, I think, 95 episodes on our way to 99. So almost there.
Almost there. Thank you so much.
Until next time.
Yeah, till next time.
Bye, everyone.